How do you go from caring to taking action? Fortunately, you live in an age where it is exceedingly easy to do this. Uh, well, let me take that back. The paths are not closed to anyone these days. You're not limited as much by want of a vehicle or by living in a rural area because there's too many miles between you and somebody else who's like-minded. Fortunately, we have the internet. Utilize that tool. You're using it right now. You're capable of navigating the web. It divides the work significantly. But even if you're not a tech-minded person, these same strategies work. They're tried and tested. And they just take various analog forms then that take more time. But let's get right to it. But first of all, you want to start accomplishing change in the USA. Understand your targets. At the end of the day, any organization you put in place will likely only last as long as you're willing to put the effort in. So you do have to sway politicians. You should note who those are. Who are the ones that you personally can sway? Yeah, the president represents you, technically. But they also represent hundreds of millions of other people. That dilutes your voice. So you writing an email to the White House doesn't do nearly as much as the same effort in writing an email could be to somebody who is more dependent on your vote specifically. So make a note of the chain of people that represents you. To get an idea, here are the 3 people I recommend you find out who they are, or the 3 people who I recommend you note who they are. Like, literally write it down. Find out who represents your district. In the description, in nearly every show, we have the link to find your representative. This is the person who it will be easiest to sway, who has an effect on national policies. Find your district representative. Find out who your state senators are. Find out who the governor of your state is. And you know all of them already? Cool. You got a leg up. With a simple Google search, you can get the contact information for them. All the time, we hear about some politician coming out and saying, I got death threats over X or Y. I was treated horribly over X or Y. And that is bad. That shouldn't be happening. But I think progressives hear that and think people who contact their representatives are crazies. It might be so, but it shouldn't be. Those are people who are abusing an otherwise good system that you should be taking advantage of. Contacting these politicians has an effect. Don't let them operate blindly. If you're angry about policies they're pushing or failing to push, let them know. Give them a fair chance to do what you want them to do. If they are only going off of, did I get elected and by how much? They're going to do a lot of reading of tea leaves to figure out what their constituents want out of them. Make it clear. Make your perspective crystal clear. Noting who these people are will also help you when you get a little bit more advanced. Thing number 2 you can do, aside from noting who the people who rely on your vote are, is contact anyone involved in any of these stories. Fox News says something abhorrent. Write Fox News. If CNN has a candidate on that they ask a question to, and that candidate or politician, they don't have to be running for office at the time, if that politician fails to answer a question and the interviewer doesn't press them on it, lets them get away with it, write CNN, mention that moment. Say, I was disappointed to see a lack of follow-up on that question. Why did they move on to a different question? If the politician didn't want to answer it clearly, well, then clearly that's the question they should have focused on. That will have an effect on the news coverage of these politicians. Remember what we so frequently say here. Constant pressure is what is needed. So whatever you do, just make sure it's something you can keep up. It's why I highly recommend emails as a form of contact. You can send them any time of the day. It requires very little effort, and it has a measurable effect. Also, getting used to contacting people that you are not personally acquainted with helps you develop the skills necessary for all other organizing. Related note. Form communities, online or in person. All you need to do, let's say you're a user of Facebook. You pick your favorite social media. And let's take Facebook as the example here. Start by searching for your town or your area, and then relevant communities that you would be interested in supporting or that have similar goals as you do, and join those groups. Citizens Take Action has groups. The DSA has branches all over. In fact, Northern Michigan University just started a youth DSA group, and congratulations to them. That's Democratic Socialists of America. Find groups near you. If they don't exist, there's something you can do right there. Create them so that the next guy, the next lady who's feeling frazzled and is looking to join up with somebody, has somewhere to go. Doesn't matter if you're the only person in the group for 2 months. Form the group. Monitor it. Just keep the notifications on. If you actually succeed in getting 10, 15 people to sign up, now you can take further steps. Are you already used to writing your representative? If you write them with an email saying, I just got 15 people to sign on to this letter with me. Here are their email addresses and names. And we say we want you to do X. We say we want you to do Y. Man, that's going to have an effect. We talk all the time about how 5 people is a big deal to a lot of these representatives. 15 people is a huge deal. One person who shows they're organized enough to gather voters into a single block for a cause. That's huge. And you know what? It can feel kind of cool, too. Because that's the kind of thing where sometimes your district representative will respond to you personally. It's a cool feeling to take a call from your representative who's interested in pleasing you. It can be you with a relatively small amount of effort, as long as that effort is constant over a long enough period of time. So recapping what we've done so far, make a note of who you should be in contact with. Start a community group if one doesn't exist. If one does exist, join it. If you have enough people in your community group, spur activity by getting them to sign on to a letter, which is simply a wording of a stance that you agree with, that would spur a representative to action. It also does not have to be as grand even as your district representative. If you find that you have a particularly active town, make a note of who your mayor is, or perhaps who's on the city council. Since the days of COVID, most city councils stream their meetings, the usually bi-weekly meetings that, or perhaps it's once a month. Regardless, the meetings that are required to be open to the public after the Open Meetings Act. That means you can just stay on YouTube, subscribe to your city council's YouTube page, which most of them have these days, and know what your city council's up to. This is an easy way to get people organized. Showing up at a city council is how a lot of nationally recognized activists got their start. If you have that group of 10, 15 people in your area, oh my gosh, all you turn up to a city council meeting with an issue you care about? I have seen, and this is your old pal Jake's area of expertise, I have seen that many people turn the tide, change the direction that a town was going in. So if you want to start making changes in America, to recap, make note of who you have to contact. Make note of who is relevant to you specifically. That will most commonly take the form of your representative, your state senators, and your governor. You can go as small, however, as your mayor, your city council, your school district's board of education. Very easy to organize a group of parents in that regard. Thing number 2, form communities, online or in person. And if you get a big enough community, now let's push it even further. You get a big enough community, you can hold events. Let's say you manage to grow that community to 30 people, maybe even 50 people. You organize an event that you know they're going to care about, and you get 50 people to sign up. You can count on about 15 to 20 people showing up. Sometimes that's enough to get the local news out there covering it. Regardless, make it fun. Do advocates and omelets day. You're going to go out to brunch, have a lovely omelet, then at precisely 1 p.m., turn up to protest X, Y, or Z. If you care about it, nothing wrong with simply making a show of it. And again, consistent pressure. If it's something you want to advocate for, and you want that change to happen, and you know it's probably not going to happen after one protest, be realistic with your group. Tell them as much. Make it a fun day. Everybody, we're putting on our Sunday best. We're going to get omelets every Sunday at X, Y, or Z place that I happen to like. And then we're going to go out in front of City Hall with signs for an hour from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Simple as that. Make a show of your displeasure, because I'm hearing a lot of displeasure out there. And you know what? Rightly so. About to go into some of the news of the day, which will likely increase that displeasure. But there is something you can do about it. We're going to have most likely a series of videos on how to organize. But they're going to start with that same pattern. Number 1, find out who the people who are relevant to you are. Representatives, senators, governor. Number 2, make a community. Look for a community. If the work's already done for you, great. You can join up with them. Find people who are like-minded in your area. Number 3, Organize that community. Begin doing things like simply writing a letter saying, if anybody agrees to this, please put your name and email address in the yada, yada, yada. This is a private group. Work out the logistics, but get multiple people to sign on to a letter that you then simply email to the relevant person. From there, it becomes easier and easier. One more thing. Find out who the allies are. If you are somebody who marches in BLM protests, I would expect you to be out there when a trans rights protest is happening. If you are in the LGBTQ plus community, I would expect you to be out there when the BLM protests are inevitably happening, because we have inevitably had another nightmare happen in our country. The nature of being an ally. If you're in neither of those communities, but you don't like seeing people get bullied, be out there with them. How do you be out there with them? You got to join the relevant groups in your area. At a minimum, in your state, there are groups representing either of these. They exist on social media. Statistically speaking, so do you. Follow them. If you do not use social media at all, fair enough. Sign up for their emails. The specific chapter in your area, sign up for their emails, because that you can practically follow. You get an alert saying, hey, there's a protest this Saturday. You know where to go. So be a strong ally as well. If you become a community organizer, if you take the step to start your own group to deal with a specific issue, or to deal with a range of issues that you don't see dealt with in your area, or from the perspective that you feel they ought to be, going out to those other protests, the Black Lives Matter, the LGBTQ plus community protests, etc., that will get you known in your states, in your areas, activist community. That means it will be easier for you yourself to populate protests, to get attention drawn to what you care about most. So there is benefits to being an ally beyond simply doing what's right. We are stronger together. There's something else you can do. Talk about specific things you might want to take up. Right now, you ever curious why Fox News seems to run the same defense for the same people that, say, Steven Crowder does? Well, that'll be because they're both bought by billionaires. Can't remember what Ben Shapiro's network is, but The Blaze, I think. But all of these places have funding well beyond their initial audience. Where does that come from? That literally comes from billionaires. These are the same people who are buying our politicians. One issue you might consider taking up is getting big money out of politics. There is already a group working on that. You can join with this group. That's called Citizens Take Action. And they're working on a constitutional amendment, which would be the only thing that can supersede a couple of disastrous Supreme Court decisions. Constitutional amendment that would get big money out of politics. This is from their website. Link in the description. By the way, you can sign up for Citizens Take Action there as well. We must pass a constitutional amendment to get big money out of politics because poorly reasoned Supreme Court decisions like Buckley v. Vallejo and Citizens United are the primary reason big money has flooded our political system at unprecedented levels. No constitutional amendment can make every change we want on its own, but we cannot get big money out of politics without a constitutional amendment. There's some surprising allies in this fight. Adam Schiff is one. Adam, generally speaking, middle of the road Schiff, is very much a supporter of this. Bernie Sanders, obviously, is one. Here's a strange one. Matt Gaetz. It's likely because nobody wants to give that guy money because then they're associated with him. But he truly is an advocate for getting big money out of politics, which means it's not going to be hard to get him to specifically say that he supports this here. Put a script in the description near where you can find your representative's contact information. Even if you don't want to do any organizing beyond this, you can simply write your representative and tell them that you want them to endorse the 28th Amendment. That would be the Restore Our Democracy Amendment. Citizens Take Action are the people who are leading this fight. I'm proud to say some wicked viewers have already signed up for Citizens Take Action. Hell yes. Keep it going. Constant pressure is how we will get this done. If you can get your representative to say that they support this as well, it's only going to get more and more eyes on it. A lot of people have the sentiment that they want to get big money out of politics, and they have no idea how. They have no idea what they would advocate for. This is what to advocate for. We just need all of us on the same page. Having all those allies supporting each other doesn't mean anything if we don't have a specific plan. If we're just generally sending good vibes back and forth, it doesn't mean anything. It needs to be all pushing in the same direction for getting big money out of politics. That's the direction to push. If you are interested in dealing with the politically corrupt in our country, the people who, for example, straight up tried a coup, have a look at this list of states. Are you from one of those? Is your state missing a green check mark? If so, I have great news for you. You can do more than most. These are states that were involved in the fake electors plot. The January 6th committee spelled out in plain detail a conspiracy in which Trump was at the top, giving orders. The federal government has failed in now into our third years since this clown got out of office to pursue any charges. Any charges. Guy stole classified documents, refused to give them back. No charges. We've got further examples coming up in a moment of Republicans getting away with crimes. However, there is nothing except for cowardice and tradition, which one would argue is a tradition of cowardice, stopping the state attorney generals from opening state investigations into the false elector plot. Proof is in the pudding. Michigan, the AG, Dana Nessel, had closed the state investigation when the federal government said they were opening one. It was way back in 2020. Then, quite recently, as in within, I think, 3 weeks, Dana Nessel said, no, we're reopening our state investigation. It's simply been too long. Proof it's been too long? People who are named by the J6 committee have run for and been elected to public office. It has been too long. Fani Willis, she is doing a slightly different investigation, but it's into what amounts to the same thing. Pressuring Brad Raffensperger to try to overturn Georgia's election results. States have the power to do this. If you are from one of the states up there, I have provided in the description the link for your attorney general. Contact them and say you expect them to protect you. That is their job. Another benefit to the state investigations: it's going to get a lot of the corrupt folks that were involved in this at the state level that a federal investigation would likely ignore or give a pass to in order to get Trump. What you have there is 7 bites at the apple. You only need 1 to get Trump in prison. Just 1 to be successful in court. The January 6th committee, which I can't stress enough, they're not professional investigators. They're just people with the authority to ask questions. January 6th committee made a dang good case for Trump's involvement in all of those. Every single one. Tell your state AG to get on the ball. If you just want to tell Merrick Garland generally that he ought to have done this already, there's also the General Department of Justice contact link.